Okay. Whoa. Step back.
Run to the Hills from 20 years ago. You know, during a time many music critics felt metal was getting stagnant, Iron Maiden emerged as the intelligent metal band. And they represented a whole new breed. The whole perception of metal changed. And I'll tell you, it's one of the reasons they are they're probably on the top 3 all-time greatest metal bands out there worldwide. It's incredible looking at the catalog. They're reissuing all of the Iron Maiden stuff. It's coming out as we speak. We have Bruce Dickinson on. Bruce, welcome back to the show, man.
Oh, hi there.
Great to have you back on since 1997. Jeez. You know, when I asked you 5 years ago, is there a possibility Iron Maiden would get back together? You left the door open. Tell us what happened. How did it all come about, man?
Well, you know, as you know, I mean, I had 5-6 years away from the band, and I was doing my solo stuff and everything. And I guess it got to the point with me where I built up a pretty decent fan base of people, and all the people who liked my stuff, well, a lot of them were also Maiden fans as well. And they were coming up to me, and there were just rumors, and people were saying, hey, you got to rejoin the band. And I was like, well, there maybe people will be upset, and they went, are you kidding, So everybody was telling me to rejoin. So I was doing some serious thinking about it. I mean, it wasn't exactly a secret that people were considering it. But I got called into our manager's office one day, because even though I left the band, I still stayed with the same management company, and a lot of the guys in the band are still my buddies the whole time. It wasn't like we had this huge, childish cat fight or something. And I got called in, and they said, or manager guy said, do you want to come back and sing with the band? And I said, well, has the old singer left, Blaze? And he said, yeah, he knows that he's leaving the band no matter what happens.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, that's okay. I've got a clear conscience about that. So basically, yeah, as long as we're in this to make a great new record and not in it to do some nostalgia trip, which is not what I was about at all. I just spent 6 years out of the band trying to build a solo career based on, trying to take metal somewhere else and trying to, move forward. And I didn't want to come back into an Iron Maiden that was just going to sit back and churn out the old tunes.
Right, you're not going to be happy with just another band trying to have a reunion. You wanted to be number one. You wanted to kick ass.
Well, one of the first things we did in an interview was somebody was saying, well, the new Maiden, what's it going to be like? And I said, it's going to be better than Metallica is what it's going to be like. And they went, what, you mean you think you're better than Metallica?
Yeah, I read about that.
I said, what, are you kidding? I said, of course we're better than Metallica, And people were like, oh, yeah, Iron Maiden declared war on Metallica. And I was like, well, hey, it's just like fact. So get used to it, But I mean, and that kicked up a big fuss and everything. And I thought, well, we've said something now. We've stirred up a bit of a controversy there. So, hey, when we go out on the road, people will be able to see that that Maiden is a really special band. We're going to do a great new record. And I said all this stuff, and people went, oh, yeah. But I knew within the band, I mean, Adrian coming back in the band, 3 guitar players, there was this great spirit in the band that nobody would believe until we made the record. And then people went, wow, Brave New World, it's like the best-sounding Maiden record for years,
mm-hmm.
And that led right on to doing this live album, which we did at Rio de Janeiro with our biggest show we've ever done, 250,000 people in one place, just for us.
How many? 400?
No, 250,000, a quarter of a million people.
Whoa. Yeah. There's no doubt about it, the international touch of you guys. I'm telling you, just go on the internet all over the world, websites based about Iron Maiden, anywhere, Russia, everywhere.
Well, we've in the rest of the world, like outside the U.S., we're actually, with the last record, we're selling as many records now as we ever did when we were, allegedly at our peak, back in whenever that was, the mid '80s or something like that.
Right.
It hasn't really fallen off, and I know for a fact that it's not all 40-year-old Iron Maiden fans buying this stuff, because when you get to 40-something, people don't buy that many records anymore, and they don't go out to shows that much. It's kids that keep this music alive, and from like 13 to 25, and these are the people that we're getting at our shows now, and it's great, because we feed off that energy, and we need that energy. I mean, if that energy stopped coming at us from in the audiences, we would stop playing concerts because we wouldn't enjoy it anymore.
And a lot of the new bands that are out there use Iron Maiden as the inspiration, like Disturbed and Seven Dust, bands I've talked to.
Yeah, it's amazing the breadth of different types of music that seem to have been influenced, or I think probably more accurately, maybe inspired a little way by Maiden. What I like is that sometimes the bands that come out and say, we were real big Maiden fans, their music actually bears no relation to Maiden at all, which is fantastic.
That's right.
Because it means that they came along to our show and they got something and they went, wow, whatever that made me feel like, I want to go and make music that makes somebody else feel like that, and they've created their own thing.
Right.
Which is just brilliant. It's just what life's all about.
I agree. It's just like people who get into radio and they find someone they love on the radio when they're a kid, and you could idolize someone and take that inspiration and be an individual and come up with your own style on the radio. A lot of people don't. They'll copy. They'll literally try to copy their idol. That's not what you're talking about here. These bands are doing their own thing, but it's the energy, the wildness. You broke the rules.
Well, there's one thing that looking back on what is now 25 years of Iron Maiden since the band started, it seems that although the band came to certainly people's attention in North America in the 80s, we survived the 90s quite heavily, and here we are in the 21st century playing to our biggest crowds ever. It's with effectively a set of new material, which is something I find completely extraordinary, because it's like the band doesn't actually belong to any one of those eras. Most bands belong to a particular era, and when that era is over, like the 80s, there were 80s big hair bands, and at the end of the 80s, they were over.
They're absolutely right. That's why I put you guys in the category of AC/DC. You're more than just survivors. You guys are still completely relevant. Well,
I think I agree with you, but I think the reason for that and AC/DC is another band I agree with you on as well. It's because we've never taken any notice whatsoever of fashion or trends or what's supposed to be hip or what we're supposed to wear or what we're supposed to say. We just go on and we just do Iron Maiden stuff, and the band has a kind of internal gyroscope that keeps us upright and in Iron Maiden world. And people throw accusations at us that like, but all your songs sound the same, and they say that about AC/DC too and everything. But Maiden fans know they don't. And I'm an AC/DC fan too, and I know that AC/DC songs don't all sound the same, It's just a simplistic way, and I think a lot of it is jealousy that people who's had a 5-minute career with 2 albums that sold, they sold 10 million albums in 5 minutes, and then were 2 years later forgotten about.
All right, very good. I completely agree with you.
And there's a lot of those guys. And the American record industry at the moment, well, actually not just the American record, the worldwide record industry appears to have lost all interest in doing anything else except, 1, create 5-minute wonders, and 2, then bitch and complain about how there are no more bands like Pink Floyd anymore.
Yeah, that's right. And they're not giving anyone the chance like they gave Pink Floyd the chance. They're not giving the bands the 2 or 3 albums they need to develop sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's true. And I actually think that certainly big record labels are populated by people who, they love music, allegedly. But I can't figure out why people would really go and work for a big corporation if they loved music. It's kind of a strange thing to do, I guess.
Well, they're having a tough time. They're talking about lowering all CD prices under $10. They're also talking about putting these little copyright chips inside the CD so you can't make copies.
Oh, yeah.
But let's go to the phones. People have been calling all night. We got a lot of people. 1-800-ROCK TALK to talk to Bruce Dickinson. When you get through, speak loud, right into that mouthpiece. Make sure your radio's off. 1-800-ROCK TALK. Let's go to line 1. It's T-Rob right here in Charlotte, North Carolina, listening to 99.7 The Fox. Hi, T-Rob.
Alan, Bruce, how's it going, guys?
Hi there.
Hey, it's great to talk to you, man. I saw you in concert back in '86 in Tampa. What a show. What a show. And, I know you were talking about 40-year-old people and so on, and thank God for the kids keeping you guys alive. Keeping the band going and everything, because I still enjoy you guys. Buying the albums, love the music, and it's just meant so much over the years, man. I turning my kids onto it. We go to school in the mornings, cranking up Maiden in the car, and and you're right. He's not a big hair band because Eddie never had any hair for the most part. Maybe the first album, but by the time Peace of Mind came around, he was bald, man. You guys gave him a lobotomy.
Yeah, well, that's kind of it. Yeah, we had a few questions about that in the U.S. on the album Peace of Mind. We did think we'd made it kind of clear, that there's a big kind of suture marks around his head. And
padlock, man.
Yeah, and then on the inside we were eating a big brain, and on the and it was a peace of mind, etc., etc. And the first question I got on a big radio interview in the States was, "Hey, dude, why did Eddie cut his hair?" And I was like, "Well, if I have to explain it, it's just not funny, is it?" So I'm glad you got it.
It was great, and I tell you what, man, Alan. It is wonderful to hear Iron Maiden on the radio again. I wish program directors would listen to this show and crank it up.
I wish I had more time to just expose. I mean, I've been going over the catalog today, man, and geez, this stuff is awesome.
Well, I'm glad you played something from one of my personal favorite albums, and
The Number of the Beast.
One that Bruce is on.
That's the first one Bruce was on, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, Bruce, settle something here. I've got the official Iron Maiden calendar in front of me from 1986.
Oh, yeah.
And the one from 1985, which has a really cool picture. You guys standing in front of a sarcophagus.
Yep.
We went to the show in '88, and this girl had a banner that said, "Happy Birthday, Bruce."
Yeah.
And we were there on the 6th, and she was thinking your birthday was the next day. The official calendar has you on the 8th or the 7th.
The 8th or the 7th?
Yeah, they've got you on the 85, it says the 7th, and on the 86 calendar it says the 8th. And when we went back to my place after the show and looked at the calendar, I was like, man, it's not his birthday tomorrow, man. It's the next day.
No. It's actually the 7th.
Okay, well, that settles it.
7th.
Well, you definitely are a fan, man.
There you
now
go.
I know which calendar is collectible.
It's the 7th of August, 1958.
Well, happy birthday, man.
No, it's not my
20
birthday
years
yet.
ago.
It's February.
All right, T-Rob, glad you got through, man.
Hey, have a great night, and I'll be looking for that album to come out.
Okay, thank you.
And you're
going to
hear a good chunk of it tonight. At the end of the show, we're going to put together kind of a really neat ultimate set. 1-800-762-5825. We'll go back to the call shortly. We're going to take a break. Quick question, speaking of record companies. You join Iron Maiden. It becomes the biggest album. When you did The Number of the Beast, it was their biggest album to date.
Yep.
How much did the record company pay you for that album?
Well, we just had a deal that kind of rolled along, album after album after album.
Because most bands tell me nothing. I hear that from AC/DC. AC/DC's first album, that they made money. The first album they made a profit was Back in Black. The rest of it, they were paying back the record company.
Okay, well, I got to say that we actually we haven't had those kinds of problems. But if AC/DC are having problems, I can recommend a good manager.
Yeah, well, that was back then. They're doing fine now. All right, we'll take a break. 1-800-ROCK-TALK to talk to Bruce Dickinson.
We are now taking calls at 1-800-ROCK-TALK, toll free. Please shut off your radio before going on the air. This will avoid confusion with our delay.
This is the Allan Handelman Show. We have so many great songs to sample from this great band, Iron Maiden. Bruce Dickinson's with us. We're going to go right back to the telephone. Remember this one? We'll try to play this in its entirety later, too. All this stuff's been reissued, hitting the stores now.
Can I play with madness?
Want to talk to Bruce Dickinson? 1-800-ROCK-TALK, 1-800-762-5825. Bruce, welcome back, man.
Oh, hi there.
We're having a ball here listening to all this stuff, so we better go to the calls here because these people have been holding on for hours. Let's go to Robbie listening to I-95 somewhere down in Georgia. Robbie, welcome to the show.
How you doing, man?
Doing good, man. You got Bruce.
Yeah, hey, Bruce, can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
Hey, man, I got a couple questions for you. When did you first join the band? How did you guys come up with Eddie as your mascot? And what was it like for you to really make the album Brand New World?
Brave New World, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, Brave New World. I joined the band in 1981, and kind of like sort of autumn, late summer, autumn of '81, and we made Number of the Beast at the beginning of '82, and then we toured the Beast on the Road tour for 10 months of 1982, and then so on and so forth, all the rest of it, lots of touring and lots of gigs. Eddie started out life, do you know what a kabuki mask is?
Not really.
A kabuki mask. Well, it's kind of like a white painted face mask that they use in a weird, in a kind of ceremonial dancing in Japan. It's like using human beings as pretend puppets. Right?
Oh, okay, I get you.
Yeah, okay, you might have seen it on TV or something, and but anyhow, kabuki mask, and it's affixed. It looks kind of strange, kind of weird. And in the early days of the band, obviously nobody could afford a big stage show and stuff like that, and basically the band were playing bars, but they still tried to put on a good show, and they bought this kabuki mask in like a junk store or something, and they put it over the top of the drummer's head. And at the end of the show, it had like fake blood came out and little fireworks came out the eyes and stuff like that. When the band's got a record deal and the manager showed up and he was checking it out, he looked at this kabuki mask and went, "That's kind of cool. Why doesn't it have a face on it? Why doesn't it? It could be like a character, like an emblem or something." And everybody said, "Oh yeah, it's a good idea." And they had a nickname for this kabuki mask, and it was just called the Ed. So it became known as Eddie the Ed.
Cool.
And that was how the name Eddie was born. And Rod, who's our manager, a friend of his knew this guy who he said, "This guy's a really talented illustrator, a guy called Derek Riggs." So along comes Derek, and Rod plays him some of the music and says, "What kind of ghoulish emblem figure would you come up with for this?" And he came up, after a little bit of toing and froing, came up with Eddie. And we had a rubber mask made. And the first incarnation of Eddie on stage was our manager, Rod, wearing a leather jacket with a big rubber head, it went all the way around from front to back, And he'd come on waving a big spotlight at the end of the show. Went down great, even in bars and stuff like that. And then, if I can sort of fast forward to 1982, when we had the Beast on the Road tour, that's when we developed this big, the walking Eddie, this giant 6 foot, 8 foot monster that comes on stage. And that was our lighting designer. Went to see, believe it or not, an opera. And he goes to see this opera, and they have big stage sets in operas. And suddenly, on stage, walk all these 10-foot giants. And he was like, geez, how do they do that? And he went to see the guy that built these things, and he said, could you build one of these? And showed him a picture of Eddie, but 10 foot tall. So that's what happened, and that's how it got started.
Great story.
Cool, man. I never thought that what ended up in your Wicker Man video actually started out as just a kabuki mask, and 20 some odd years down the road, it becomes pretty much your icon for the
Absolutely.
group.
Well, but that's how great things start. You see,
I know.
Great stuff comes from ideas that people have. I mean, people think that so much great stuff happens accidentally, but you just have to have your mind open to catch it and go, wow, that's a great coincidence. What a great idea.
So it becomes part of that 1% that you strive for, that creative 1% that's the genius that you have. Everybody.
Yeah, isn't that weird that you've because I have I have a strange saying that I say to myself that 99% is garbage, by which I mean that
it's okay garbage. It's day-to-day stuff.
It's okay garbage.
Right.
It's good garbage. But
right.
It's forgettable. Most of my life, right, is forgettable. The same way as that's it. I mean, you do it, and it just happens. Stuff happens. You drive around, and nothing really important happens. But if you can tune in to the 1%, or even maybe less, that is like really memorable, and go, wow, I'm going to hold on to that idea and do something with it, then you can really do absolutely crazy stuff, and it's really worth holding on to that.
That makes
it's
sense
all around
to me.
you, the creativity.
Mm-hmm. That makes total sense. Well, listen, Robbie, thanks for calling. Did you get your answer?
Oh yeah, but I had one more question.
Real
left.
quick, man.
What was it like to make Brave New World for you, Bruce? I mean, personally with the band, as well as how did it affect you personally with all the schedules that you guys had to go through?
I'll tell you what, it was great, and I'll tell you for why. We got a producer in, a guy called Kevin Shirley, who's also done he's going to do the next album, and he's done the live album too and mixed that. And Kevin came in and said, look, you guys are a great live band. Have you ever made an album live? Not a live album, but done an album where you've recorded everything all at once in the studio, just like they used to make records in the old days with Elvis. And we went, oh, no, because it's always kind of tricky and difficult. He says, no, it isn't. He said, that's what I do. So we went with it, and that's what we did.
Wow. I didn't know that.
And that's how we made Brave New World. We took over a cinema, it was a studio, but it was converted from an old cinema in Paris. We had a huge room for the drums that plonked there in the middle, and then around the auditorium, they'd made little booths, which were part of the studio, and each one had a glass wall, so we could put a musician in each one of about 8 booths with their instruments, separate all the sounds, but have us all with eye contact, and all of us had our own mixing desks, so we could get the perfect monitor balance for ourselves in real time, right by our microphone or our instrument or whatever. And that's Kevin's setup that he brings with him from one studio to the other. So it was the best experience of recording an album I believe I've ever had.
Oh, shoot, I can tell you with guys like Deadlights and Seven Dust, and plus myself, I'm 17 years old and I'm a guitarist. I can tell you right now, man, the two guys who inspired us and the third generation going on through, there's no way that metal's going to die anytime soon.
No, it's back stronger than ever, man.
Got that right.
Just look at the charts. Look at the charts.
They've tried to kill metal at least 3 times while I've been a musician.
Oh yeah, that's right. It goes in cycles. It comes. Yeah, they always trying to kill it. Yeah, And look at the Nickelback, and you got Lit, and you got Tool, and you got all these bands inspired by you guys.
Band, aren't they?
Oh yeah. All right, man. Good talking to you. Thanks.
Thanks for your time, man.
Okay, thank you.
Bye-bye.
Another new fan. Not really news. A lot of these people have been listening to you for years, even though they're 17. Let's go to Atlanta. It's Jeff. No, it's Dino. Dino, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Doing great. You got Bruce Dickinson live.
Hey, Bruce, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How's yourself?
Just fine. Revisualizing 1982 as you were talking about it, happened to catch that your stage theatrics were, just excellent. Put you up there with Kiss and everything else as far as a great stage show, man. Just fantastic. Live, you guys are fantastic live, and congratulations coming back with the band. There's a question I'd like to ask you. Going through some Blue Oyster Cult collection tapes, I see that you are produced for reissue by Bruce Dickinson. I'd like to know how you got involved with the band, and did you enjoy this project?
Okay, it's not me.
It's not him. It's
not you.
Another Bruce Dickinson.
There's another one. And he also produces Iggy Pop records and some other albums, because I get around a bit these days otherwise. So I'm afraid it's not me.
All right, Dino, that's a good question. Now at least we find out.
Yeah, I haven't produced. Just for the record, I haven't produced any records for anybody. So that's nice and easy. So if you see somebody that says produced by Bruce Dickinson, it's not me.
All right, Dino, thanks for calling, man.
Hey, you guys have a good evening.
You too.
Yeah,
800 Rock Talk, 800-762-5825, wherever you're listening tonight in the country. If you miss any part of the show, we'll archive it. And, of course, we're streaming at alhandelman.com. I just got word today everyone's streaming again, so we'll get that all up. All right, let's go to Jeff. And, Jeff, welcome to the show. You're listening to WRDU, Raleigh, North Carolina. Jeff, you got Bruce Dickinson.
Hey, thanks a lot. Bruce, how are you?
Very good.
I can't tell you what a thrill it is to have you on the phone here. I've been listening to you, 17 years now, and I'm kind of at a loss for words here, no pun intended. The question that I had, you guys, a band knows they've really made it when you've got tribute bands that do nothing but play someone's music, and there's plenty of Maiden tribute bands. And there's an all-female Maiden tribute band in L.A. called the Iron Maidens. And I just wanted to know, have you ever seen a Maiden tribute band, or what's some thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's got to make you feel good.
Well, there's a lot of Maiden tribute bands in Europe as well, and in fact, the Iron Maiden fan club did a European tour recently of convention. We did fan club conventions in most of the big countries in Europe, and we actually took an Iron Maiden tribute band with us on the road, and they're called High On Maiden, and they're a really cool bunch of guys, and they're just big fans, and they have all kinds of paraphernalia. I think one of the guys actually has a pair of Steve Harris's old trousers. So I'm not sure whether. Well, hey, they've been scraped, so that's okay. But so yeah. I mean, I don't mind. But tribute bands, I take it as a great compliment, and it's terrific. But if I could just say one little thing about tribute bands, is that there's obviously so much energy and so much inspiration and talent out there that people want to do tribute things with our stuff, and that's great. But there's only so many times somebody can do a copy of the Trooper without us sitting scratching our heads going, this is great, but all the effort they put into that, they could have done their own song as well, or messed around with our songs. Because I was talking about with Yannick the other day. In some ways, I would rather have somebody try and do something really extreme with our stuff and take it somewhere else, because I'd be really interested to hear that. Do you ever hear a band called Dread Zeppelin?
Yes.
Yeah.
Awesome band. I mean, fun. I know there are some Led Zeppelin fans out there with no sense of humor or irony or whatever, but I mean, for me, that was just fun. That was great. I'd much rather hear that than a bar band doing, a whole lot of love for the 50th time, And the same thing when Eric Clapton covered his own tune when he did Layla, but he did it for the MTV Unplugged thing. And he covered Layla and put a whole different time signature on the song. And the song became a completely different song almost. Right. And yet, because it was such a great song to begin with, it still held together. So I just thought that was really great. And I love hearing songs in different contexts where bands do a really, really different version of it, So, yeah, I think it's terrific that people do tribute albums. But sometimes, I must confess, I do find them a bit too slavishly, faithful to the original.
Wow, that's a really insightful answer. Actually, I like that.
Any plans for Maiden to do Unplugged anytime soon? That'd be pretty. I definitely
Unplugged Maiden.
Unplugged Maiden.
Maiden's got some beautiful, mellow, sweet stuff, but just a handful of songs that last that long. I mean, usually it breaks into some amazingly fast rock and roll in about a minute.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, we have no. There's no prejudice against doing acoustic parts or quiet songs or anything else like that. So I'm not sure what us doing an Unplugged would prove. It would prove, I guess, that we're desperate to be on MTV, and we're not desperate to be on MTV. So hey, there you go.
No, you guys made it to the top totally without the help of MTV, and that's really commendable. And I'm just glad. I wish more people would do that.
And to some degree, they made it without the help of radio. I mean, sure, radio finally gave you guys what you deserved towards the end there. I mean, in the beginning, radio played it, but, a lot of people didn't get it. They saw they saw your mascot on the cover, and they saw the imagery, and they didn't really take time to hear the music. Your critics, I'm talking about, the ones that wrote for magazine articles,
Yeah, I think it's important for us, with all forms of media, whether it's press or radio or TV or whatever it is, that they get Iron Maiden for what it is, not that we change Iron Maiden so they get it. That's the most important thing, is the band's integrity stays put, because that is the only thing we have. I mean, let's face it, everybody makes variable records, I mean, some of our records have been really great, Some of them have been like, this is an okay album, I mean, so I'm not going to go out and say that everything we've done since the beginning of time has been brilliant. Of course it hasn't. But people will forgive you an awful lot if they know that you're not trying to sell them down the river every 5 minutes, by going off and doing, basically bogus stuff that's not true to what your fans and what we stand for as a band.
Yeah, it's just like if you're trying to capitalize on a trend, or get grungy, because grunge was cool when that whole thing happened. That's why people love any band that rocks from the heart and rocks hard, no matter what people say, no matter what the media's impression was or the rock critics say, they rock. Those are the bands that hang in there. Those are the bands that have respects 20 years, 25 years later. I think that's the story about you, AC/DC, maybe 2 or 3 other bands that are relevant.
It's pretty much the story for a load of it. I mean, it's not just metal music, but I mean, if you look at, for example, the Grateful Dead,
yeah,
there's an example right away, and Pink Floyd again, who never really, although Floyd obviously got a lot of acceptance on American radio, mm-hmm. but in Europe, you can't hear a Pink Floyd track anywhere.
Is that a fact?
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the media and what's going on musically in England when we get back. We're going to continue. Keep the calls coming at 1-800-ROCK-TALK. Hey, Jeff, thanks for calling, man.
Thank you so much, Bruce. I'm glad you and Adrian are back with the band. Your voice sounds phenomenal, and thank you so much for your time. Take care.
Thank you very much. The check's in the mail. Thank you.
That's the kind of voice that gives you goosebumps. There's no doubt about it. 1-800-ROCK-TALK.
We are now taking calls at 1-800-ROCK-TALK toll free. please shut off your radio before going on the air. This will avoid confusion with our delay.
And we have Bruce Dickinson from Iron Maiden, and we're going to go back to the calls very soon. 800 Rock Talk. All right, let's go back to the calls here. Let's go out to California. John, what is your question?
Metallica lost a lot of fans because they changed their style. I didn't notice it as much, but some of the newer fans noticed it and completely dropped them from their listening. And I was wondering if Iron Maiden was planning on changing their style at all.
Well, I mean, obviously the band's style does change a little bit, you know, or the content. I guess not so much our style, but our content. I mean, certainly the Brave New World album, it's, I suppose the word progressive rock wouldn't be a million miles away from some of it, you know. But I think people who are Maiden fans realize that the band's always had its roots in stuff that's progressive. I mean, one of Steve's favorite bands is a band called Nectar, who you know, a German band, I believe, who did, you know, three songs and that's your album, you know. So they you know, that kind of thing, and we all have a background. I mean, he's a big Jethro Tull fan. I'm a big Jethro Tull fan, but we also like really heavy stuff as well. And I think it's one of the things that makes Maiden a bit off the wall and a bit different and a bit more, well, almost kind of eccentric in some ways, some of the things we get up to musically. And I think our fans appreciate that. But we don't have any plans any time to change what we do to the extent that some bands do, where they really just turn themselves into kind of a, you know, corporate type.
No, it's just not going to happen. I want to bring up something. Eric, you might remember this. You listen to the show. You know how I have contests? Sometimes I play a kick-ass rocker, and I tell everybody, name the band.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember I play a song called Fire? I am the God Hellfire, and I bring you fire. And I can't sing, so I'm not even going to try. But you know the song I'm talking about?
Yeah.
And I didn't bring it tonight. But we always have people say, yeah, I love that song. Who is it?
Do you know that guy, the guy that sings that song, Arthur Brown, is quite a close friend of mine.
I read that today, and that's why I'm bringing it up.
That's right. I am the God of Hellfire.
And I bring you fire. And see, that was your inspiration. So you started on the bizarre side, because that was just, when did that come out, that song?
That was like 1967.
Can you imagine?
It was such a great song. There was a band, do you remember a band? There was a band called Atomic Rooster.
You know what? That's the other thing that flipped me out today. I almost fell off my chair. I've been searching for Atomic Rooster albums for about 12, 15 years.
Oh my God,
I finally found it on CD about a year ago.
Yeah.
I love Atomic Rooster.
Well, Atomic Rooster, the crazy Arthur Brown, right, came out with a Crazy World of Arthur Brown, 1967, had a #1 hit. This is an amazing, amazing album. It was produced by Pete Townsend,
yep,
right, of The Who. It is the first, or certainly the first concept album that I know of, rock concept album. It's about a man's descent into hell. And the song Fire actually happens when he's done all this stuff and he's gone down and he's gone into the earth and I think they took a few strange pills when they made this record. But anyway,
the Atomic Rooster one or Arthur Brown?
There's Arthur Brown, and he opens the door, and as he opens the door, he said, "What's behind this door? It's so hot in here." And he opens the door, and there's the devil sitting there saying, "I'm the God of Hellfire." You know?
So cool,
right? So that's the reason why that voice happens. But in the band, it was a 3-piece band with Arthur Brown singing, Vincent Crane, who was the organist in Atomic Rooster. Vincent Crane played organ and did all the bass parts on bass pedals, like on his Hammond organ, and Carl Palmer from Emerson, Lake and Palmer on the drums.
Gee, I didn't know that. I did not know
that was the Crazy World of Arthur Brown. They did like one album, And then Arthur, who is an inspiration for everybody from Peter Gabriel to Alice Cooper, and Kiss as well for that matter, because Arthur was the original. He used to set his head on fire every show.
Yeah, before Alice Cooper, before Marilyn Manson, this is the guy.
He was one of the first guys. He got himself up on a crucifix, being crucified on stage before anybody else. One show, he had himself in an enormous syringe, because it was a song about drugs. And as he sang the song, the syringe kind of crushed him. Inside the syringe, this huge man-sized syringe. So he was pretty out there, you know. And Arthur, after that, did another album that was groundbreaking, Arthur Brown's Kingdom Come.
Yep.
And I have a whole bunch of these albums.
I'd love to interview him because I always.
Hey, you can. Did you know he quit music for 20-something years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he went off to become a mystic, and he became a Sufi mystic.
A mystic?
He became a mystic, full-on dervish dancing and everything, meditation, the whole 9 yards. Then moved to Dallas and became a suicide counselor, right, and a painter and decorator.
Jeez.
And he used to do suicide counseling by music therapy.
Wow, I'm really proud of him now. I mean,
he is an amazing, amazing guy, and he still does gigs. He's still he's touring with Hawkwind at the moment, and I've been trying to get him to sign to Sanctuary's record label for so long.
Oh man, I'd love to hear some of his new stuff. I'm just so glad. Before I let you go tonight, give me a contact where I can get up with him. I'd love to have him on the show.
I can. I'm sure I can hook you up. I'll look him up when I'm back in England, which is going to be this week. And I mean, we really. I saw he played a gig. I saw him when I was about 16 years old, 15 years old, something like that, and he blew my mind. Absolutely blew my mind. I'd never heard anything like it, and an enormous part of my vocal influences comes from him, and Ian Gillan and Ronnie Dio and these other guys. But so much of it is from Arthur, and I think that's why people haven't quite figured it out, because not very many people are familiar with what he did. But
I keep that song alive because, it doesn't have a home. You don't hear it on classic rock stations. You don't hear it on oldie stations because it's too wild. You might hear it occasionally.
It is such a great song.
It is.
One of the things about that song is that song's like Bohemian Rhapsody. You can't cover it.
Yeah, that's right. It is.
Nobody
has covered that. I could never understand that.
I tried. You can't do it.
Fire, and the quality is so good. Yeah. You say there's only 3 guys on that song?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. All right, listen, Eric, we gotta let you. Anything else, real quick? We had a ton of calls here, man.
That's all. I'll be listening to your show every Sunday, though.
I appreciate it, Eric. Thanks a lot, man. 800.
Nice.
You too. 800 Rock Talk. 800-762-5825 to talk to Bruce Dickinson. Let's go to Matt. You're on, man. Hi, Matt. You're on, buddy.
Hi, new listener, but a long-time Iron Maiden fan.
Great having you, man.
Bruce, it's a pleasure to talk to you, and pardon me if I stutter, but I'm a little nervous talking to an icon.
You're doing fine, but you got to talk louder and closer to the phone, Matt. You're doing fine. Don't start over. Just continue.
Okay, I was wondering if a lot of the bands of your era tend to miss the Southeast United States. If you're going to release, I understand you're releasing a new live record, but if you're releasing a new studio record this year and if a tour is pending.
Good questions.
Okay. We go in the studio towards the end of this year, and we're going to be making a new studio album. And that's going to come out next year, and there's going to be a big tour. And in reply to your thing about the Southeast, for whatever reason, promoters and everything else are very reluctant to have Iron Maiden, go and troll through the Southeast, because the perception is that basically there aren't enough Iron Maiden fans in the Southeast to all get together and show up in a big arena. That's the perception. Now, I'd love to be proved wrong on that.
Oh, come down here and we will prove them wrong.
Yeah, I've seen you in Raleigh, North Carolina, play just unbelievable. Scream for me, Raleigh! That was a great show.
You want a job?
Oh, man. But no, Matt, I understand what you're saying. I will. Hopefully they will.
I have another question, if I may.
Yeah, just as loud as you can. Go.
I heard rumors that you and Halford and Tate were going to do a 3 tenors.
Yep.
Did that ever come about?
It didn't come about, and the reason was that we it was an idea that got put forward at quite short notice, and the reason is that my producer and my main songwriter for my solo stuff, Roy Z, right, has produced the last couple of Halford records and is actually producing the one that's going to be released fairly shortly as well. In the process of him producing the Halford record, Rob heard a song that was actually going to be for one of my solo albums called The One You Love to Hate. And so there was a suggestion that maybe the two of us could do it on his record, because we could both look at each other and say, because I'm the one you love to hate, and stuff. And there'd be a little bit of an irony about it maybe, but that's what we did. And I guess that's what got people thinking about it, because on the last tour, Rob and myself and Jeff Tate, obviously, were all touring together, and we all got pretty chummy, So one thing leads to another, and this idea gets put forward. Everybody loved the idea. I mean, I couldn't find anybody that wasn't really excited, going, yeah, what a great idea,
Absolutely.
But the practicality of it was that Rob had a new album to do. Jeff was heavily involved in Queensryche, and it was like, well, when are we all going to get together and A, write it properly, and B, record it, and C, when are we going to go and tour it and promote it? So it was a question of getting us all, getting the 3 planets in alignment, and it just didn't happen. But we did write some material, so I don't know whether we'll do that maybe as a one-off or whatever, but it's a good idea, isn't it? I mean, I think it would be a huge fun thing to be on the road with.
I agree, but I would like to wish you the best with everything that Iron Maiden does. I live and breathe Iron Maiden.
That's great. Just get an idea. How old are you, Matt? How old are you, Matt?
Thank you.
How old are you, Matt?
I'm 32.
Okay, just get an idea at ages here. It ranges from 16 on up and maybe even younger than that. All right, good. Good talk to you, Matt. We've got to move on.
Thank you.
800 Rock Talk to talk to Iron Maiden. Well, essentially Iron Maiden, Bruce Dickinson. We got another great segment. When we come back from the break, I'm going to sample part of this new album that's coming out. This album sounds like it was in the studio.
We are now taking calls at 1-800-ROCK-TALK, toll free. Please shut off your radio before going on the air. This will avoid confusion with our delay.
It's a little sample. We'll play it in its entirety later. It's coming out March 26th. Brand new Iron Maiden. In fact, every Iron Maiden song's been digitally remastered. There's a new DVD out there. And we're talking to the one and only Bruce Dickinson. Bruce, thanks for being on the show. We're going to take some more calls, okay?
Yep.
All right, let's go. Paul, is Paul next? Okay, Paul, welcome to the show, man. You got Bruce Dickinson.
Hey, thanks for having me.
You got him. Speak up nice and loud, Paul.
All right, I'm on a cell phone. Hopefully my cell phone won't cut out. But I've got 2 questions for you.
Go for it.
First of all, are there any plans? Well, first of all, it was great talking to you, Bruce. I started listening to you 21 years ago. And but I really want to know, is there going to be a box set, like a huge, that covers everything you guys have done?
Okay, and what's the other question?
Hold on a second. Well, the other thing, what was the atmosphere when Adrian came back? And excuse me if I pronounce his name wrong. Is it Janet Gers?
Yep, that's right. Bang on, mate.
Yeah, when Adrian came back and Jack was in there, what was the atmosphere with all 3 guitarists in there?
Okay, well, I'll answer the first one first. And the box set, there is going to be a box set. We just haven't designed the box yet.
Okay.
But the box is work in progress, and it'll be by the end of the year. We're also going to be releasing some pretty rare stuff. We've got some concerts from the Number of the Beast tour, live at Hammersmith and live at Reading from the Number of the Beast tour, which were really well-recorded stuff that we've had in the archives for ages. And they're very rare, and people have wanted them for some time, so they will be released, I think, at that time. So basically the answer is yes, there will be one. And the atmosphere when Adrian rejoined with Yannick and Dave was actually incredible, and I wish I could say that I knew how they figured it all out, but I don't, because the guitarists went off into a kind of a huddle by themselves, and they arranged all their own guitar parts for all the songs in the set on their own. And I don't know how they divided it up or what they did, but they all cooperated with each other, and it was great. So we don't have too many out of control egos in Iron Maiden. So this is a good thing.
Great.
All right, Paul, thanks for calling, man.
Hey, thanks. Well, hey, Alan, when are you going to try to get into Birmingham? Think you could try to get in there? Because I'm always on the road, and that's the only place I can catch you.
Well, what station? What's Birmingham,
right now,
Alabama? Is that where you calling from?
I'm calling from Macon. I'm on the road, actually. I'm a truck driver, but I can't get you in Birmingham at all. That's where I'm from.
All right, we'll try to get a station in Birmingham.
Hey, thanks, Michael.
All right, Paul.
Bruce, have a good time out there.
Appreciate it, man.
And like that other caller, try to get to the southeast.
Yeah.
1-800-ROCK TALK, 1-800-762-5825. Bruce Dickinson. I only got a few minutes left. I read this, and actually was an interview with you, but you didn't elaborate, and I don't know if you were just fooling around with the guy who was interviewing you, but you said that Ian Gillan once dragged you out of the toilet unconscious.
Yeah, well, no, not completely unconscious, but most of me was unconscious.
Well, what's the story behind that? Ian Gillan from, Deep Purple, of course.
Yeah. This is in hang on, let me just figure this one out. That would have been 1979. And I was in a band called Samson, and we just made our first album, and we'd done it in Ian Gillan's studios, because he was a big hero of mine, and we'd been up and we'd been kind of celebrating and stuff, and we were listening to the album back, and Ian comes in, sits down, and starts listening to the record with us. And I just can't believe it that like my biggest vocal hero, or one of them is like sitting there across the room from me in the studio. I'm like going, wow. And he turns around and he looks at the four of us were sitting there, and he says, hey, the singer's pretty good. Who's the singer? And I'm just like, oh my God. And at this moment, that's when I decided that I was going to chunder. And so I kind of went, it's me. And I was going kind of green, so I said, excuse me, I got to go. So I walked out of the room, went to the can, stuck my head in the can, and was just so ill. And I thought, I just got to stay here with my head down the toilet, because I can't possibly face.
How embarrassing! Yeah.
Well, of course, Ian, being a true gentleman, of course, decided that he was worried about me, so he came out to find me, cleaned me up, stuck me in a cab, and sent me home.
This is your hero doing this.
Absolutely.
Wow, man! That's great. Yeah, that's a great story.
I think I must have been all of. Let me see. How old would I have been? Like 20, 21 or 22 or something.
Well, that's a great story. What is the deal in England? It seems like, I don't know what the music scene like is right now. Is metal hot? And what are they saying about you guys?
Well, Iron Maiden has the same problem in England, that it actually probably more so in England almost than anywhere else, that we sell a lot of records, but we're not trendy. So it's kind of strange. We sell out, 20,000, 30,000 seat arenas in London, and the press ignore it. They think maybe if they ignore us, we're going to go away, or they don't understand it, or whatever it is, So we're up against this stuff as much in England as we are anywhere else in the world. But that's just the way of the world,
Yeah, and I have seen it happen. I've seen England, not really, like we talked about AC/DC before. Metal really wasn't happening there. They were getting more sales, more reaction here for a while. It goes in cycles. But it seems like a lot of people who write for rock magazines or these teen magazines, they turn on these old bands. If you're not new and hot, you're pretty much not written about. And that's...
Well, when Maiden kicked off in England, or got noticed by the press in 1979, at the time the press were busy trying to destroy Led Zeppelin and Sabbath and all the other bands. because punk had happened, and so that was it. It was the end of all other music as we knew it, and the punk was going to be the next big thing according to the press. So Maiden came along into all this as a really quite aggressive metal band, a bit more fierce maybe than some of the old kind of blues-based bands that were around, but still, taking inspiration very much from Zeppelin and Purple and Thin Lizzy and these other guys. But because Paul, the singer, looked a bit different, some of the press called Iron Maiden a kind of a punk metal band, which really, really, got everybody in the band pissed because they weren't. In fact, Steve absolutely hated punk music and everything it stood for. So, this kind of annoyed them. And the press took to Maiden. They went, oh, great, yeah, here's a heavy metal band who is secretly punks. They really don't want to be a heavy metal band. And for the first, the people writing stuff like that about Maiden, and it really used to get up their noses, So we finally laid that one to rest, And when the journalists find out, a lot of them were quite disappointed. They were like, what do you mean you don't want to be punks?
Yeah.
I was like, well, no, we don't want to be punks, actually, because we think it sucks.
It didn't fit the mode, what they wanted in their mindset, yeah. All right, let's squeeze on. Ashley, last call for Bruce. This time around, when he's back in this country, you can count on he's going to be on the show. Ashley, you got him. Last call for Bruce.
Thank you.
Speak up nice and loud, Ashley. Ashley.
Am I ready?
Yeah,
Ashley.
You sound like you're at a convenience store at a cashier or something.
No, I'm at home in my uncle's room.
Oh, okay. Well, go ahead. You're on the air.
Okay, I was wondering what made you not come back to Colombia after your last show.
Well, how's he going to remember that? Why didn't you come back to Colombia?
What made you not want to come back after your last show in Colombia?
What made me come back to Colombia?
Why? First of all, Ashley, what made you think he didn't want to come back?
I thought I had overheard him saying on the radio that there wasn't enough fans in the southeast.
Well, it's actually one of the problems is that it's simply a question of if we're taking 8 trucks around the country, we need to get places like 80% completely sold out. Otherwise, everybody is losing their shirt, and we're going to have a very short U.S. tour because we won't be able to afford to do it. So basically, we have to go to the places where we can afford to put the show on. And it really is just simply that if in the southeast, if there aren't the numbers of people, then it's real simple. We can't come back there. So that's just the brutal truth of it.
Well, we're going to try to change that. We're going to definitely try to bump up those numbers. Ashley, thanks for calling. We're really out of time, so I'm going to have to let you go. And Bruce, this has been a fast 90 minutes, man. I love your music, and I got to tell you, I had no idea, even though I've been a fan, I had no idea until I saw this catalog, and I actually sat down and tried to listen to this today, how much music is out there that is just incredible that people haven't heard. It's all coming out, all reissued, digitally remastered, and a full live album March 26th, live from Rio. Bruce, thanks for being on the show, man.
Well, thank you very much. I'm glad to find another Arthur Brown fan out there.
Yeah, I wish I had it tonight. I'd play it, but what I'm going to play for a couple of minutes as we get into our next segment, and then in about an hour or so, we're going to have a nice long Maiden kind of set. But give us a little introduction to this little song. 2 minutes, the 2 minutes to midnight. 2 minutes to midnight. A little story behind that. We're going to leave with that.
Okay, 2 minutes to midnight was the lyrics to this tune were inspired by a book called Dispatches, which was a book by a war correspondent, a guy called Michael Hare, and he wrote about war in an interesting kind of way. He didn't write about it in a real simple way, like, all war is bad, because the fact is that we all love watching, well, not all of us, but most guys like watching war movies. There's a fascination with it. There's a kind of a romance to this kind of horrific ballet that goes on in war. And the book didn't try to disguise that. He actually talked about it and stuff. So the song was an attempt to look at war in a sort of a saying this is a horrible spectacle, but at the same time it's fascinating. And although people like to say, oh, it's a real bad thing, sometimes bad things just have to be done for the sake of keeping your liberty.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually there's a quote in the song which is actually straight from a U.S. general that I saw in the back of a dust jacket of a book, and he said, "Blood is freedom's stain." And I went, yep.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a very palatable thought, but regrettably it's true that sometimes, if people really want to take away your life and your liberty, then you have to be prepared to lose your life and your liberty in order to defend it.
Wow, you put it well. That's
just a really nasty, horrible fact of life. And the other story about it was when we did the video. Now, the video, these guys, the video directors, came up with this storyboard, which is a story told in pictures, basically. And they had these mercenaries and everything going through the song. Anyway, they said, we found this really, really great place as the hangout for the mercenaries. And it's this really run-down, decrepit tenement block in the East End of London with all these rats and stuff running around, and it's all broken down, and it's really great. And here's a picture of it. And I looked at it, and I went, I used to live there.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
It was a squat in London. I went, oh, yeah, I lived there when I was in Samson, and I see it still has the polythene up on the windows.
Oh, man. What a trip. 1984, the album is Power Slave, 2 minutes to midnight. Turn it up. Bruce, we're going to stay in touch, man. One of the intelligent rockers out there. Listen to this guy talk, and you can understand the music. Yeah, listen to the words. This is one metal band. The words mean something. Bruce, thanks a lot, man.
All right, man.